Welcome to the Nazareth University Centennial Podcast. I'm your host, Timothy Nealand, and in each episode, I'll be guiding you through stories of amazing alumni, fascinating faculty, or the hidden history of the university. This special edition of the Nazareth University Centennial Podcast will look at the time that Nazareth went down to New York City to comfort those grieving from the 9/11 attacks. It's an episode dedicated to the way that Nazareth responded. The university came together as students and faculty, staff supported one another. Nazareth also opened its doors to the rest of Rochester, hosting a community forum that was attended by over 200 people, in which the theme was peace and mutual understanding in the global world. Nazareth reached out by going down to New York City. As Carol Ritter, a staff writer in the Democrat and Chronicle, noted, there are many ways in which we can extend some comfort and solace to the weary rescue workers and grieving families in New York City and Washington, D.C. Recognizing the healing benefits of music, officials at Nazareth College, as we were called then, have decided to send a chorus of more than 40 students and faculty members to sing a cappella concerts of favorite hymns, spirituals, and patriotic songs at various locations in Lower Manhattan. The group left by bus at 5 a.m. and returned a day later after singing on and off for 24 hours at the West Side Pier, Union Square, and several relief worker sites. Supervised conducting were Brian Hunter, Thomas McGarry, and Mark Ziegler, all members of the music faculty. Today, you're going to hear from Brian Hunter, a student that went on the trip, and excerpts from student recollections of their experience, as well as a firefighter's wife and the bus driver that took the students down there. These interviews were conducted by Isabella Rearman as part of the Center for Public History.
So my name's Isabella Rearman. Today I'm interviewing Dr. Brian Hunter about the 9/11 music therapy trip to New York City. So can I hear a little bit about you, who you were then, who you are now, and then your connection to the trip?
Certainly. I'm a professor emeritus here at Nazareth University in music therapy, emeritus professor in both the School of Music and the Department of Creative Arts Therapy. At the time of the trip to New York City, I was coordinator of the undergraduate program in music therapy, and I'm now retired. But I was the coordinator of the program and helped put the trip together with some other faculty, and we ran the trip.
So specific to September 11th, the day itself, a lot of people remember where they were and what was happening. So I was just wondering, what were you doing? Where were you? And what did it feel like around campus if you were on campus on that day?
I remember it very well. I was on campus and in my office, and another music faculty member stopped by my office and said, "Are you aware of what's going on in New York City?" And I said no, and we both left the music department and walked over to the cab where there's a big screen television and began watching the coverage. And I was actually sitting in the cab watching the television when and saw the two towers fall.
Yeah, I can't imagine how that must have felt.
Yeah, it was stunning. It was sobering in that we were witnessing the worst day in the country really since Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of hard to believe that we were doing that.
Yeah. So I read that you were kind of the organizer, and the trip was kind of spurred by hearing a news report that ABC put out. Could you explain a little bit about that and how the trip came to be?
Yes. ABC News was reporting from the Armory in New York City, where the officials had asked family members to bring combs, toothbrushes, that sort of thing, of their loved ones so that they could get DNA off of them. So apparently this line was quite large. And there was, at some point, apparently some people who had gathered there who were singing there on the street. And for some reason they had stopped, and the folks in line were sort of clamoring for there to be more music. And so as I sat and watched that news report, I thought, and of course, contemplating what, well, I think as many people were, what can we do in this to help in this horrendous situation? And when I saw that report, I thought, well, at the very least, we could go sing. That we could do. And I talked to Dr. Tom McGarry, who was the chair of the music department, about the idea of maybe taking some students. And this was on the weekend. I was talking with him, and he said, "Well, let's give it a try." And we went in on the following Monday morning to Dr. Silva, who was the vice president for academic affairs, and told him about the idea. And he said, "Well, he would approve it, the idea for, in terms of the college giving permission to go." But he said, "I don't have any money." And we that went across the hall to Linda Gillum's office, the vice president for development, and told her about the idea. And she said, "Okay," she said, "let me see what I can do." And Dr. McGarry and I left her office and talked a little bit, and I went back to my office, and I hadn't been in my office more than about 10 or 15 minutes when the phone rang, and it was Linda Gillum, the vice president for development, calling to say that she had made one phone call and gotten a $5,000 donation for the trip. So that was on Monday, and so we proceeded to put the trip together starting that day.
Hmm. So leading up to the trip, did you have any goals specific to how many, performances you wanted to do or anything like that? And kind of what did you expect, or did you expect anything at all?
That's a really interesting question, because we knew we wanted to go sing. I had seen the report about the people just standing in line. Talked about the idea of visiting firehouses, and I have music therapy colleagues in New York City that we began to connect with, who gave us ideas about where to go sing. And in fact, when we got down there, some of them actually joined us and helped us to go around, to get us around to where the different firehouses were. We did not have a set agenda. It was really, in retrospect, sort of amazing that we took off with a bus full of students and faculty to New York City into this tragic scene, with no set agenda as to what we were going to do when, other than just to go sing.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not something I would do again in terms of being that fluid. But that's what was necessary in that context because of the nature of it. So we did not have a preconceived agenda. We made the itinerary up as we go along, and like I said, it was facilitated by some of my colleagues in music therapy in New York City.
So what did it feel like to be in New York City right after the attacks? And what was the experience that you had kind of from a leadership standpoint in trying to get everything organized?
So I'll do the second part of your question first.
Mm-hmm.
Get everything organized. That happened really, really quickly with a lot of good help from across the campus. We had help from food service who gave us food to take, and we had the students begin to get signed up. We had 2 1-hour rehearsals on Tuesday. Now remember, we got the permission and the money on Monday, and we did the rehearsals, and then we took off the next day for New York City. So it all happened very fast. Everybody was very cooperative, excited to be able to do something,
Mm-hmm.
in this horrendous context. And we left on at 5 a.m. on Thursday. So this was a week and 2 days after the attacks. And that was the organization piece that we had to get a bus. We had to find a hotel, again, all of which fell into place really very, very quickly with a lot of cooperation and help from the community. In terms of what it was like to be there, it was sobering. It was, when we were down near the World Trade Center Tower number 7, which is at Chambers and West Broadway, you could smell the acrid smell of smoke still in the air. Excuse me. So it was sobering. It was also it rained on us that Thursday all day long. We just got on off the bus and in and out of the rain. But we sang at several firehouses, which it was just an amazing experience to see the firemen standing and listening to us sing. And the students were, I think, incredibly moved by the experience.
How did it feel to represent NAS at this time?
It felt really great. And our news did a report on the trip here before we left. They had an honors reporter from the New York affiliate come meet us and took pictures of us singing, took video of us singing in the firehouses, and all of that got shown on television. And so it was neat to be a part of that and represent NAS doing that.
And then how do you think the music therapy's presence impacted those who watched the performances?
So let me just read to you a note that was handed to us when we were down, all the way down as close as we could get to the World Trade Center Tower 7. That was the closest point we could get to West Broadway and Chambers. We were standing in front of a restaurant singing appropriately a cappella in front of a restaurant that was named a cappella. And we were singing patriotic songs and hymns. And a resident walked by, listened, and then wrote us a note. And here's the note. He says, "Thank you. As a resident of the World Trade Center area, I want to thank you. The hymns you sang today are an inspiration and the most uplifting sound heard in this neighborhood since that terrible day. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America." And he just signed it a resident. I think that pretty much sums up the effect.
Mm-hmm. And then for you, what was the most memorable part or the biggest takeaway that you got from that experience?
Well, as a music therapist, there was no doubt in my mind that the music would be important to the people listening. Again, going back to just that report that was on ABC News. So I knew that it would have an effect, and you could see that in people's faces as they were listening. You could see that in the tears when they were crying. You just heard the note that I wrote from one resident. So I think we were able to do what we set out to do. It would have been nice to have been able to done it for a week, but we did it for what we could do.
And then is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that I haven't asked you?
I don't think so. It was just a stunning experience and one that I'll never forget. And I think if you talk with other people on the trip, I think you'll hear similar kinds of reflection. It was a good example of what can be done quickly when people will rally to a cause. The trip was put together in about 48 hours, and between the support we had from here and the support we had from my music therapy colleagues in New York City, we were able to we were able to do a lot in the context of those couple of days.
Well, thank you so much for meeting with me. I enjoyed hearing what you had to say, and I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was my pleasure.
My name's Isabella Rehrman, and I'm interviewing Dr. Kelly Hutchinson, who was a student on the 9/11 music therapy trip to New York City. So who are you now? Who are you then? And then what was your connection to the trip?
So now I am Kelly Hutchinson Anderson and teaching chemistry and education classes at Nazareth. Then I was a sophomore at Nazareth, and I was actually a chemistry majoring in education, but was connected with music. So I had actually thought about doing music as an undergrad as well, but was in the music therapy club. And so when 9/11 happened, we were supposed to be in organic chemistry class, but it got canceled that day. And so soon after that, because there were so many students here that were impacted, the music therapy club kind of came together, and we just kind of, within 10 days, we were down in New York City. And so that's how I kind of got connected, is I was already part of the music therapy club, even though I wasn't a music major.
And so kind of going off of that, on 9/11, where were you? How did you feel? And then what was kind of the feeling on campus after the attacks?
So I was supposed to be in organic chemistry lab. They that something was not happening. Like we were doing like a digital or a computer lab simulation and it wasn't working. So we got sent home. We got to be able to go back to our dorms. And then I woke up to the TV showing what that was happening. So I was back in my dorm room and we actually had some of our suite mates had family who were in New York City. So it was scary. And we had lots of music majors that I was all friends with music majors and many of them had come from New York City. So there was a lot of like scared.
Mhm.
They couldn't get into contact with anybody. And then there was also talks of they were going to try to hit Niagara Falls next. And so my family, or my dad at least, was kind of up in Niagara Falls working. And so that was just kind of like, it was more panic and scared and what are we going to do? But it was people still coming together and supporting each other and kind of classes were like, this isn't what we're going to do anymore. Like we're not doing classes. And so it was just kind of, let's focus on this and making sure everybody's okay.
I can't imagine that feeling. So then around the trip, so how did you end up going? I know you kind of mentioned that already. And then what was the goal of the trip and what did you kind of expect versus not expect? And like, how did you feel about?
So I ended up going because I was part of Music Therapy Club and really good friends with some of the people who were going on the trip who were music therapy majors. So I think I just kind of like worked my way in a little bit. And I think the point was really just to try to help people process through music and just being able to have another way to express and just hear like another, I don't know, just try to calm some nerves a little bit or just have that emotional outlet. I didn't expect it to be as emotional as it was. I think that was the biggest thing. Like some of the things that we saw and just like the families that we saw that had clearly lost other ones, that was hard. And seeing all of the posters with all of the family members that had been lost was, I think, one of the hardest things. Like it was one thing to see it on TV, but then to see it all in person was a completely different level. And seeing like firemen crying while we were singing was it definitely put a lot of different things in perspective and kind of shaped various parts of the trip, I think.
I feel like that's something you can only kind of like grasp once you're there.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah.
It just wasn't like, I mean, it was definitely real, like right before we had went. Like you knew all of this, but it was like you could smell the towers, like you could smell the smoke and the ashes and it was still burning. And it was just, once you have all of those senses coming together, like you're seeing it, you're smelling it, you're hearing it, like it's just a completely different world and what everybody was living. And then people were still trying to go to work and continue on with their lives. And then they were coming out after work and going to different memorial sites. And the firemen were still constant, like 24-hour shifts, trying to put the fires out, find anybody they could. And it was just heartbreaking to watch and see and process, I think.
Yeah. Again, kind of going off of that, what was your experience during the trip? And as a student and part of the choir, how did it feel to be there doing what you were doing?
I mean, I loved when we were singing, right? Like being able to like being surrounded with each other. And I felt like we would lean on each other for support and seeing how it was impacting others and that they would come up and like thank us for singing to them and telling them how, like they would tell us how that was impacting them and that we were making a difference, being able to just sing, right? And just provide another way to kind of get some of that grief out, I think was really important. And so it felt like, I don't know if it's inspiring is the word, but it felt like we were doing something good. And I think that was helpful, right? Like to be like, okay, we're experiencing all of these things, but we're also doing good and we are making a difference in the lives of some people, at least in this short moment that we're with them. And so I felt like that was, I don't know, I liked that experience. I liked being able to do that. I'm so glad I had the experience to go down there, even though there was all of these other things that were happening, like so many emotions, but at the same time of seeing how music impacted others was huge.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that completely answered the question.
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah. I think you did what you could to like try and help people.
Yeah. And like, I mean, between us, like, right, like the students, each other, like we would like lean on each other. We would kind of we would talk like through like what's going on. Like it wasn't just like, like, and everybody wasn't stoic the entire time, right? Like,
Yeah.
there was tears from the choir as well, but there was enough of us that would be able to, like, okay, you're crying right now, but I'm going to keep it together, and like, right, and changing back and forth. And so I think being able to have each other as support and seeing how that could like work was really good. And just like the various songs, like there were definitely songs that hit each person differently. And so I think it was just, I don't know, it was nice. We were a strong group together, and support for each other, I think, was huge.
Yeah.
And so becoming, like, I feel like we became closer on that group or in that time for sure, which was kind of nice to see.
And then how do you think, you kind of already touched on this too, but how do you think the music therapy's presence impacted those who watched the performances?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely something that helped them to continue in their grieving process, right? Just like listening and seeing that there are people from not right in New York City, right, willing to do something else and different, right? Like we weren't helping at ground zero, but we were giving them a different outlet of a way to express their grief and everything. And it's just seeing the power of what music can do and how that can be a therapy for people, I think was amazing, right? Like, I mean, they're coming up and thanking us for singing to them and just like saying like, this means a lot to us that you took the time to come out here and be able to sing to us. And like, we were very strategic about where we were, when we were, and how we went through and kind of did that, which was really powerful, I think, for people.
And then what was your biggest takeaway and like your biggest, not favorite memory, but like the one that strikes you the most?
I mean, I think Union Square, between like Union Square and Bellevue, like singing at the two of those, I think were some of the most powerful. For Bellevue, it was just seeing like so many posters of pictures of like essentially like, are they here? Can you help? Like, is there anything here? And then Union Square was just one of the biggest memorial sites of where people were bringing their flowers and their candles, and just seeing them and families lighting it for others, I think was one of the biggest impactful parts, because they all lost each other. But you would see different people leaning on each other for support, which I think was helpful. And just people were actually coming together and caring for each other. And so like, we don't see that as much anymore. And I think that's one of the biggest things is like, this was a time of extreme tragedy, but people actually worked together and cared for each other. And it didn't matter who you were still supporting the person next to you. So I think that was one of the biggest takeaways.
And then is there anything else that I haven't asked that you'd like to talk about, or?
I think so. I think you covered it all.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking with me. It was wonderful to hear your perspective as a student. And
all right.
Thank you. Here's an excerpt from a student reflection. As we sang, it became increasingly difficult to look into the eyes of the firefighters there as we too began to feel their pain. I, for one, became too choked up to sing at times as I watched these pillars of strength weep for their brethren. When we piled back into the bus, we too seemed to feel the loss of this great city. And we knew then that after this trip was over, we would never be the same. We sang at 3 other fire halls that night, both eliciting the same response from both the firefighters and us. But one of the most difficult experiences for us was at the public memorial for the missing people of the World Trade Center bombing at Washington Square. There were hundreds of people gathered there, lighting candles, looking at the faces and the names of people who were missing, and staring in disbelief at all the carnage. When we began singing, they all gathered around us. Those who knew the songs joined in. Some just looked at the ground, and others sobbed uncontrollably on the sidewalks of NYC. Here is another excerpt from a student reflection. On our way out of town, we received word that Bellevue Hospital was holding a memorial service for those who lost loved ones in the attack, and wanted us to be a part of it. When told that this would delay our arrival time back to Nazareth, we voted unanimously to stay and sang anyway. We sang at the end of the ceremony while hundreds of people stopped to hear us. When we were done, I remember this one lady shouting at the top of her voice, "Welcome to New York, welcome to Bellevue." It made us all feel satisfied to know we were able to touch a few lives in even the toughest of times. On our way home, I began to realize how much I have to be thankful for. I think we are so caught up in our daily routines to stop and appreciate what we have. We fed the people of New York City a little piece of food those 2 days, and in return we felt the warmth and love they gave us. We as a group realized how important it is to share our musical gifts with others. We also saw that even in the face of absolute terror, music speaks soft, kind words of wisdom, love, and hope for our future. Here's another excerpt from a student reflection. Though I am sure everyone has seen it on television, nothing could prepare you for the magnitude of devastation suffered by this city. Hundreds of people stopped to watch us at Union Square, where literally thousands of candles, flowers, and pictures memorialized this tragedy. One of the firehouses we visited was hit particularly hard, losing 15 of its own. As a group of them watched us perform, their eyes welled with tears. They were once again summoned to return to the rescue operation. We respectfully looked on as these true men of valor once again bravely responded to a call of duty. Here's a note that one of the firefighters' wives wrote to Dr. Hunter. I just read Music Therapy Matters in your article about your visit to NYC. Thank you. One of those firehouses you visited is my husband's. He told me about the community group who had come by to sing and how wonderful and moving it was. I had no idea, nor did he, that the group had come from Nazareth and that you had organized it. It meant a lot to them. I'm sending the article into their firehouse. The outpouring of support is a source of strength for these firefighters. They are truly a family amongst themselves. They live together, eat and sleep together, and literally depend on each other for their lives at times. They do consider themselves brothers in every sense of the word. But so many of their family were taken at once, and they, unable to get to them despite all their efforts, is an overwhelming burden for them. Every gesture, every visit is appreciated and reassuring to them. On behalf of my husband and the rest of his firefighter brothers, I thank you and everyone at Nazareth for your wonderful efforts. Here is a letter written by the bus driver for Nazareth's president. I was very fortunate to be the bus driver on the New York City trip, transporting all of the volunteer singers headed by Dr. Hunter. There is no doubt that you have heard story after story concerning the singers and the great job they did. As their driver, I was with this group morning to night through the entire trip. These young people were so giving of themselves that words will never, ever be enough. Yes, everyone they sang for was delighted. Many were in tears. Above and beyond those stories, and the many more I'm sure you have heard, are the other details of the trip. With very little notice, all these volunteers were assembled to do what surely was the Lord's work. They departed Rochester in the wee hours while the city was still asleep. Breaks from the long bus ride were kept short. With little sleep, less than adequate food, and a sky that kept pouring buckets of water on them, they time after time performed their miracle of music on the people of New York. And the grateful firemen, police, and many city residents truly loved their songs. On the bus, at rest stops, restaurants, or in the hotel, these young people were something to be proud of. Not once was this of any doubt. Each and every person in the group treated me well and displayed patience and understanding in the New York traffic. Dr. Hunter was always running somewhere or doing something. I am not sure he ever slept. He would make arrangements, and before you could blink, he would have to rearrange everything over and over again due to the problems of the city. Dr. Hunter kept it all together through thick and thin. The other adults were so helpful to so many, it's just not describable. And last but surely not least, the conductor was fabulous. He poured his heart out at every performance, and the singers felt his commitment, and indeed poured out the most beautiful music that city may ever hear. What a team. This trip will always be remembered by me. I cannot tell you how much it meant just to be there when so many came so far to give so much with so little to work with. You can be proud of students, staff, and volunteers that performed this wonderful feat.
I know I'm proud of the way that Nazareth responded to the tragedy of 9/11, the way that Nazareth continues to respond to the needs of the community around us. I hope you've enjoyed this special edition of the Nazareth University Centennial Podcast. My thanks to Bella Rearman, Kelly Hutchinson Anderson, Brian Hunter. We also thank you, the listener. If you like what you hear, let us know. You can like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms, and love it if you'd leave us a review. Thank you, and until next time.